But anyway, this is, I have to apologize for how I read everything. This is Nga Purakau no Nge Rakau, Stories from Trees, by Nova Paul and Tessa Laird. And this is going to be on, I think, Maori Cosmology. And this is in what I think of as, I'm not sure about this, but it looks like a newer open access journal called Philosophies. So it's published in Philosophies, and yeah. So it's about the Maori worldview. So we're doing some comparative philosophy here. And as always, feel free to ask questions and whatnot. But yeah, let me know. And I hope you're doing alright about Agni. Anyone who does not know Agni should go give Agni a follow if you are not already. Agni is Evolve Yourself TV, for those who don't know. He has a master's degree, I believe, in philosophy, does mind, metaphysics, philosophy of science. He also is a chess instructor for money, so he has chess on his streams. But the majority of content is guided meditations, and so he's trying to do he's a very holistic sort of stream, get you all right in your head, get you like studied up with the philosophy and the chess, and then also get your mind and body right with the guided meditations. Hey Tindarius, how you doing? Hope you're well. What's going on? Okie dokie. So, here we go. There's a story from the tribes of Ngati Y and Ngati Hain that say the kaori tree and the whale, the Tahora, are brothers. You're getting yourself modded, timed out and then modded. That's awesome. When the Tahora went to explore the sea, he liked it and suggested that the kaori tree join him, but the kaori want to stay on the land. So the Tahora removed his skin and gave it to the kaori and returned to the sea. Now, through the Aotearoa, that's New Zealand, kaori trees are dying from a pathogen that attacks their root system. Kaori dieback, as the disease is known, has wreaked havoc on the kaori forest, leaving skeletal stands of craggy branches. Recalling the story that the kaori and the whale are brothers and that the Tahora left the kaori for its skin for protection, Maori elders wondered if this ancestral connection might hold a cure for the 21st century disease and prepared an ointment of whale blubber to lather on the roots. The results saw the disease regress, and this holds the possibility for a cure. In Metaranga Maori, or Maori knowledge, this system of storytelling holds scientific understandings. The story of the kinship relationship between the kaori and the whale was kept as a repository for the knowledge that would be required in the future for the protection of the kaori. This reminds me of a story about a tsunami out in Polynesia or something. There was a old story where this guy was on the this was an older guy. He was like just lying around on the beach, not doing anything, and he noticed that the way the sea looked that day, the ocean looked like it was described in an old story that foretold of a giant wave coming and destroying everything. And so he raised the alarm, and everyone was like, "You're drunk," because that's like an ancient story. What are you talking about? And everyone goes down. He's like, "No, I'm not lying. Come look." And they all go look, and they say, "Oh shit, that is what the old story describes, and that is what the old story says happens. A great wave comes," and they got everyone off the beach, and they got everyone to high ground. And when the wave came, theirs was the only town where no one was injured, because that guy was, drunk on the beach, or he was lying there on the beach, and he knew this old story about how, from who knows how long ago, about how the sky looks when a wave is like imminent. And so, people remember stuff, and this is how stories are told. But yeah, okay. Making connections in the Maori world is called, why did I do this to myself? Waka Wanangantanga. Waka Wanangantanga. The word itself is broken into waka, wanao, and tanga. Wanaunga Tonga is used as a way to establish relationships. Traditional stories are often recited to reveal specific relationships between ancestors, species, gods, and states of being. Have you been reading Sense and Reference? Wow, okay, you're going back to the classics at this point. Yeah. I mean, I know a little bit. I do know something about that stuff. Evolve Yourself. That's yeah, that's something. We Tindaris is reading why we believe in gods, and now reading why brains don't compute. And you're reading Grice. Oh wow, doing all the philosophy of language over there. Evolve Yourself. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, on the why brains don't compute, you can ask, like, if imagine this was just a regular calculator and not a phone. You can ask, does your calculator actually calculate when you press like 5 times 5? Like, you're pressing buttons and it's electrical signals. Is that actually calculation, or is it something else? Like, why do you think that's like calculating? What is it to calculate? So, like, now, do brains actually compute? Or, like, what are brains? Do calculators actually calculate? Do computers compute? What is that? What does that even mean? Anywho, we're talking about Maori thought here. These connections are woven together and held in stories and retold. A web of connections is mapped out through Wakapapa or ancestral links. The term Wakapapa embodies much more than genealogy, for it encapsulates not only the knowledge pertaining to various relationships within Maori cosmogony, but the process of layering knowledge and connecting those relationships. Ngāpuhi scholar Kirsty Dunn reflects on this quote by Charles Royal and notes that Wakapapa can also mean to place in layers as well as to make a foundation. Layers and foundations will be important to our kōrero or discourse here. We're drawing on Wakapapa. We ask, how can these connections between the land, species, and gods be revealed in film? What do you mean in film? Are we talking about movies here? I don't understand. Anywho, I mean, this is a good question. If we assume that people's brains don't have infinite size, you can't remember everything all the time, which means that you have to somehow compress more information into our heads the more we learn if you're not writing everything down. If you have an oral tradition, how do you actually get more information into your heads than you normally would? This is a hard question because for most of human history, we didn't have written language. And so how could we get so much stuff into our brains? WinZip? Well, I mean, I don't think they were paying for it, Evolve Yourself. So, like, this is the question. How do you actually get more and more? Oh, PK Unzip, yes. I'm sorry. They should have been using the open source one. I kind of like 7-Zip. At least I haven't used it in forever, but yeah. But, like, this is the question. How do you actually do this? So the question is, given our psychological limitations of being finite beings and the psychological also like things where we just have to be able to retrieve information in a sensical way, how do you actually do that? Not so clear. And like this is like one of these questions for theory of knowledge. How do we actually have access and like be able to find information that's relevant? Okay. In Te Ao Maori, the Maori world, trees are our wanaga and tuakana, the elder siblings and holders of knowledge from which wisdom and understanding are derived. Purakau is the Maori word for story, and as Jenny Lee notes, it is not coincidental that the word Purakau literally refers to the roots or the base of the tree. Indeed, imagery of trees and bushes reflect Maori cultural understandings of social relationships and interconnections, both with each other and the natural environment. Lee notes that the base of each tree is buried deep within Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, and that every tree needs its roots, which she characterizes as experiences, knowledge, and teachings, in order to survive and grow. The base of every story comprises a mycorrhizal web of relations, Wakapapa, that literally resides within the Papa Tuanuku. According to Robin Wall Kimmerer, mycorrhizae are fungal strains that inhabit tree roots and that weave a web of reciprocity, redistributing wealth so that all flourishing is mutual. Tinderi says, the book argues that the brain doesn't work like a computer, but uses a distributed and dynamic memory system to recognize patterns and make predictions. This is unlike computers that rely on explicit algorithms and rules, making them unsuited for unpredictable situations. By studying brain's processes, new AI approaches can be developed for real-world situations. And this paper is giving you a headache. Yeah, well, this is a very different theory. We have tree theory of brain now. So, Yeah, we've got, and there's going to be a lot of hard words is the difficulty thing here too. So, yeah, this is one of the things about AI. If AI is going to be smart like we are smart, it's going to be not smart like a computer is smart. And that's the problem. If you're going to make an AI that's smart like us, then it's not going to be smart like a computer. And all of a sudden, then you don't have a computer, you just have another person. Yeah, well, the names are going to stop. Like, they're going to reference the peoples, and then they're going to, that'll keep going. That'll die out, though, thankfully. Okay, so we need a way to do both human smarts and computer smarts, and that's not so clear. But yeah, this paper will not discuss fungi as a discrete entity within the Engerhiri, the forest, but rather considers fungi, plant, soil, and animal life to be inexorably interconnected. Yeah, this is what I figured. They're not going to do this. They're just going to, no. Whoa. Are you going to collapse on me? What's going on here? Yeah, it did. Okay. Sorry, that, crashed. It's always fun when like a PDF reader crashes. Okay, here we go. So where were we? We were talking about, yeah, everything's interconnected. Sure, that's fine. Okay, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to draw that arrow and the whole thing crashed. But yeah. Frank Big Time says, I'm not sure it follows that a computer like human can't also contain all of smart like a computer. Yeah, but like that's the thing. What are we actually doing then? Because like I can run my computer like right here is my phone. I can do that. And so then we've got humans and computers. I mean, we already have combinations here. The question is, you want to make it so that the computer is somehow smarter than the people. But what's that actually mean? Like, if you have a person with our smarts, maybe we're just going to pull the computers down. Yeah. Ivan, oh yeah, Ivan, you're back. Okay, but we can make neural nets that are customized to tasks. Yeah, absolutely. We can do stuff. We can definitely do stuff. But like, I'm just asking, what exactly is the right combination here? So, Frank says, I think you can make a computer smarter than a person for each definition of smarter we come up with, but some of them will take a while. Yeah, I mean, we like clearly for chess, like games of chess, the best computer will beat the best human every time. And so it's like, we can do stuff like that. Can we make it? But here's the question, what we were just talking about here is, can you make something that's adaptable like humans? That's exactly the problem. Making something that's adaptable like people means you have to make a general AI that can like adapt over time. Not so clear. And that's the thing. Yeah, you can make a computer that's better than any given person at a given task, but can you make a computer that's going to be able to like change? No, that's very difficult. So yeah, it'll be a while still, I think. But whatevers. Okay. What's fun about this is I have a buddy who's a writer. He just published his first novel, and he was using this sort of like fungal theory as the basis for his fantasy book. So, whatevers. But yeah. Anyhow, okay. Lee advocates for a Purakau approach or methodology which guides us to speak in a language that is not exclusive but draws on our own ways of seeing, speaking, and expressing ourselves. Ivan Neo says it's estimated that if brains were implemented in silicon, they would be 1,000,000 times faster. Yeah, I mean, if you could do what we do in some other format, it probably would be more efficient. But again, we don't know how to do that though. So... yeah, I wonder, like, if what could we do? Like, get it like onto a different thing. Yeah, and like again, if it's a lot hotter, true. Like maybe it's really not so bad to be in wetware. Wetware, it's kind of safe the way it is. It doesn't overheat that much. So, granted, we do get headaches. Okay, so they're arguing here for a subjective thing. So when we're thinking about the methodology here, they're actually saying you need to be your own way, draws on your own way of seeking, speaking, and expressing yourself. So that's a subjective element in your methodology. Okay. Nova has used a Purakau method, so a subjective method, to make her most recent films, Rakau and Hawaii Key, which were created from the premise that every tree has a story. Moreover, within this essay, we utilize Lee's Purakau approach by talking with, about, and around Rakau and Purakau stories and trees with each other and a host of others in order that new branches of thought will emerge from ancient roots, for the researcher adds another branch to the Rakau, a branch that has space to be unique. Lee considers the Purakau approach as a research method which has the potential to hold many layers of meaning, and this is achieved through the activation of voice and literary techniques within text. Our voice is multiple, like the layering of Nova's experiential color separation films, see below, including images of multiple trees forming one tree, or one tree made of many trees. Alright, so later. Let us begin with making a foundation and placing layers upon it. Nova is a Tangata Wanua Maori. Her mountain is Watatiri, and her river is the Waipau. She has an experimental film practice that spans 2 decades, and much of this is guided by her tribe, the Hapu Te Uru Roroi Te Parawa Me Huraki Watatiri, and the Iwi Nge Puhi. Tessa was born and raised in the Taimakurai, that's in Auckland, under the watchful eye of Rango Toto from across the sparkling waters of the Watemate. Tessa now lives in Australia, working in Melbourne, on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin nations. I apologize for all of that. We've been friends and colleagues for over 20 years, with Tessa writing about Nova's use of color separation in her experimental film works, Pink and White Terraces, and This Is Not Dying, for the third text online platform, Decolonizing Color. See, now we're getting into some other, anything you're saying decolonizing color and like these sorts of things, now we're really getting into actually, this is experimental film stuffs. Okay. Nova's process in this instance involves filming the same sequence 3 times, processing each take in a separate color, red, green, or blue, and reassembling the sequences so that static objects maintained true-to-life color while moving objects unleashed color after images within the filmic frame. In pulling apart and reassembling color, Nova creates shades in both sense of the word, allowing the wairau or spirit of matter to be visualized. This stretching, dissembling, and layering of time follows First People's ontologies, in which time is not linear, but a meshwork of past, present, and future. Okay, so this is something like this here. You see, we've got things that didn't move, which is like the big branch is kind of brown, but everything else that did move is it's kind of got broken up colors. Like the green is probably stuff that didn't move, it was just the green leaves, but everything else is like still broken up. So the green is what didn't move, and the brown here probably didn't move, but everything else was kind of swaying in the wind. So this is interesting also. The ontology of time is not linear, but a meshwork of past, present, and future. So okay, so we've got a non-linearly structured time. Have we this is a problem. I have not heard about, this is clearly not a new idea. Why is this not talked about more in analytic philosophy? Where is the mesh times? Of course we've got branching time, but where's a meshwork of time? I'm not so sure we should think about that more. Okay. Nova filmed the daily life around her Marae ancestral land for This Is Not Dying. A humble kitchen scene features a fridge covered in magnets, one of which depicts the demigod Maui. Not sure what it means? That's my question, Ivan Neo. I'm not sure what it means either. It's very easy to have linear time. Maybe too easy. And we have some branching time and sometimes some loops, but that's pretty simplistic stuff. So... well, maybe it means nothing, though. Well, that's the question. These people think it. Maybe they know something we don't know. And, just because, like, the Maori, they've been around for long enough. Maybe they do know something. There's a good chance they don't, but there is a chance that they do. I mean, they're not dumb people. So, it's like you got to take people seriously. Ideas come from a lot of places. And so maybe they know something about time. The rest of us have to catch up. All right, so one of which depicts the demigod Maori snaring the sun in a net, a synecdoche of the film as a whole. The Purakau of Maui, just like the island Maui, maybe Maui, I don't know. Catching the sun is a familiar childhood story of the Aotearoa, New Zealand, a story about the days moving too quickly for Maui to get things done. To slow down the endless march of time, Maui's heroic intervention was to catch the sun and beat Ra, the solar deity, so that the daylight hours could be longer. Just as Maui slows time, makes it linger longer, so too Nova's film layers and congeals time. The story of how Maui slowed the sun reminds us that time is malleable, material, it can be stretched and thickened. One point of note is that the ancient Greeks, I think, and I know this is argued in a few different spots, but I think the ancient Greeks thought that place was more fundamental than time, like so space was more fundamental than time. And so when you describe relative motion, sometimes their descriptions get a little bit weird to our modern ear because they say time speeds up. And how do you actually speed time up? Well, you don't. But like in relative motion, if instead of moving twice as fast or relative to each other, when like instead of one hand going this way and the other hand going that way, then based on the viewpoint from the hands, they're going twice as fast. They actually say they're moving the same speed, but time is going twice as fast. Ivan here says, I disagree. I think it's either artistic terminology or nonsense. If it were sensible, it would not be difficult to explain right now. Why would you think things are easy to explain? Like all of science at the limits is extremely hard to explain. And so why would it be immediately sensible? A lot of things are hard to explain. This is actually one of my big beefs with a lot of scientific things. People say, explain it to your grandmother or explain it to a 5-year-old. Or if I couldn't tell if it wasn't, it'd be easy to explain if like it's only like you only know something if you can explain it to a kid. I mean, clearly that's wrong. Like, I explain philosophy. I've been doing this for years now. A lot of this stuff I break down. It is not easy to do. This is like, I'm making it look easier than it is sometimes. And it's like, that's not the way it is. Things are hard to explain. Do they have science? I don't know, Ivan. That's the question. Like, what do they know? Like, what do they know and how do they know it is the question we are talking about. I don't know what they know and how they know it. We're trying to learn. But like the point in some sense is that even if they don't have science like we have science, that doesn't mean they're foolish. They may know things about, they may have certain insights that, they do have. It is actually a bugaboo of mine. It's like, can you explain something? You don't know something unless you can explain it simply. What makes you think you don't need a lot of background to like learn certain stuff? Like Ivan, I know you know a lot of physics. Can you explain complicated physics to someone who does not have a background in physics? No, it's just not going to happen. And so if it were sensible, it would not be difficult to explain. No, not even close. It's like, nah. Like, yeah, explain to me quantum physics right now. Fit it in chat. And I don't mean to be hard on you. I'm not angry in any way, shape, or form. It's just like this idea that like people don't know stuff. Sometimes they do. That's why math has many layers and you have to learn the basics first. Yeah, chess has many layers. Can you explain the rules of chess? Take 5 minutes to explain the rules of chess. Not that hard. Can you explain how to play chess well? Well, you have to go sit and watch Agni's stream for a long time and listen to how he explains things, and then you will learn how to explain chess well. It's like the rules are simple. It gets more complicated though, and so it's like give people a chance, Ivan says, I agree, it's challenging when you see people trying. I think there are contexts where people claim smarts, but there are no attempts to simply explain. Sure. Sure. There's a lot of people who are bullshit artists, and they are saying, "Oh no, you don't understand. You just have to like work hard. You didn't get it." I'm not. You're completely right about that, and you don't want to deal with those people because they're dissembling. They're trying to make things more complex to show that they don't have any if they don't have any merit, and they're trying to hide that their ideas don't have any merit. These people aren't saying that, though. These people are saying, no, this is what is the traditional viewpoint. The traditional viewpoint may or may not have any merit. We don't know. But, yeah. The traditional... But, like, that doesn't mean there isn't something there that we couldn't learn. Because these people aren't trying to, like, hide that they don't know anything. Well, the only point I just want to make, Ivan, is that I don't like it when people say that things have to be simple or else you don't know what you're talking about. I just find that rude most of the time. It's that like, oh, what it is like the speaker is assuming they're smart enough or they know everything. Like, I think it's a little egotistical. Like, oh, you're not explaining it because I'm smart and like I should be able to understand. You must not know what you're talking about. That could be the case. But, sometimes, like I said, can Agni explain high-level chess concepts to me right now? Nope, because I don't have the requisite background. Am I a smart person? Could I do the work? Yes, but currently I know 0 chess openings. So if Agni tries to teach me chess theory, I know 0 chess openings. I will not understand what he's talking about. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, I'm more worried about the anti-intellectual stuff. Exactly, Ivan. And so, like, this is sort of the claims they get made in the wrong way when it's like this. So, yeah, like, if you try to explain, like, high-level chess opening strategy to me, I'll be like, that's nice. Like, go, like, I'm sorry, I just don't understand, though. Anywho, okay. So, when considering the concept of time for the Maori, Nova once asked her auntie for a Tangata Wanao perspective. Her auntie's reply was that she might like to direct her question to Tane Mahuta, god of the forest, embodied in the form of a giant kauri tree in the Waipoua forest of Northland, who was a seedling 2,000 years ago, the span and scale of a lifetime elongated into millennia. Since then, Nova has put her questions directly to the trees, particularly during the lockdowns of COVID-19 when Rakau provided much-needed grounding. Okay, this is actually kind of interesting because, you hear tree huggers. The idea of tree huggers, where did the idea of tree huggers come from? Tree huggers are, like, in the West, in the United States, are people who would go like hug trees so that deforestation couldn't occur. People were trying to cut down the trees. People would go cut them. Where did the idea of hugging trees come from? Why should anyone hug a tree? This was a traditional thing where trees needed hugs. I think it was from the Native American peoples where trees, like people, needed to be hugged. And all of a sudden, this idea that like you could hug a tree gained new life in this way. Question is, can you ask a tree a question and get an answer? You're not going to get an answer like you answer like from people. Can you get an answer? I don't know, but we'll see. CJ, what's up? How was my favorite Guy Fieri doing today? Welcome Raiders. Oh my god. Yes, Guy Fieri raid. Anyone who does not know CJ is one of my old Minesweeper buddies. Let's give CJ a shout out. How was the Skyrim? Yeah, give everyone CJ a follow. She's lovely. She's clearly from New Jersey. She is moving though very soon. It was a big announcement. We were all disappointed that she's not taking us all to Flavor Town. But yeah, so trees do not have minds. No, they don't. Well, we don't know what kind of minds. Yeah. Hey, Team Wormwood, how's it going? Let's see. Penny of Many, CJ Moment. Welcome in. Hi, I'm Noger, No Gray. Sometimes people call me. It's all good, whatever you say. You had a great Skyrim was so fun. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, because I ducked out because I was coming to stream myself, but I was hanging out there a little earlier. But yeah, so That's great. About me, I play some Minesweeper sometimes. I haven't in a while, but I'd like to get back to it. I also made Minesweeper Pro, which is a competitive Minesweeper site. So, if you want to have a Minesweeper tournament, that's the place to go. And what I normally do just for regular content is I read and explain philosophy papers. And this is actually a Maori. We're talking about Maori from, Australia, New Zealand area. You were part of the last Chord Cup. It was fun. That's awesome, Anonymous. I'm so happy. That's the whole point of this stuff. The cosmology of the Maori, and we're talking about what can you learn from trees at this point, where basically this lady had a question about time, and her aunt's response to her was, have you asked a tree? Now, there's a good question. Can you ask trees questions and get answers? But the idea that you are supposed to even ask a tree is, interesting. And why would you want to actually go do that as an experience of go asking a tree? And so this sort of thing. The Maori have a different concept of time than we do. They have a different concept of the world than Westerners do. And so what is there in that sort of way of looking at stuff that might be of worth? So this is the thing. So this is what I'm doing right now. I hope all of you had a great time over at CJ's, and always feel free to ask questions. You can interrupt me. You can ask me anything you want about Minesweeper or philosophy in general if you want. It's all good. So, yeah. Team Worm, you're my favorite worm. Okay. So yeah, so this is right where we are. What is it to actually go ask trees a question and maybe even expect an answer? Can you get yourself into that mind set of where you ask a tree a question and you get yourself an answer? All right. As daily life ground to a halt, an ordered sense of time also became untethered, which Paolo Preciado, among others, saw as a political opening for decolonial and ecological thought, a schematic caesura for modifying subjectivity and opportunity to declare, stop the world, I want to get off. Is it implausible to connect such a tectonic temporal shift and its concomitant effects on thought to shifts within cinema, which Deleuze assesses as points when new cerebral circuits are created? Creating new sequences in art means creating them in the brain too. Okay. So they shifted away from the asking trees question into what is our sense of time when we aren't doing our regular stuff, as in, stuffs, when COVID-19 hit. Okay, both Rakau and Hawaii are conversations with trees. Rakau preceded Hawaii and was commissioned for the Maori Moving Image exhibition in Christchurch Art Gallery in 2022. I bought a poster from the Christchurch Art Gallery movie area. I have it in the next room. I bought something from these people once, actually, on the movies. So it was a Tron. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen Tron. So I think some of you are old enough, but I have an original Tron poster out of New Zealand. I wanted the Australian version, so I have it framed in the room over there. Anywho. In this film, Nova carried out her first experimentations, filming trees and hand processing them in the leaves of the trees. Okay, so they processed the film in tree leaves. Carefully exposing the film footage to ensure all film process elements could be reworked through with notations on the filming. This film is a study of the textures of the trees from an etheric circle of ancient prairie. The Bolex camera moves along the trunk and into the branches, filming 20-second rushes of hand-wound film to create in-camera edits. The footage sways along with the wind in the trees. In the black and white experimentations in Hawaii, which screened at the Sundance Film Festival in 2023, Nova has approaching filming the trees with a more formal portraiture approach. Sometimes the camera is locked off, and other times it pans around smoothly and carefully tracks the limbs of the tree. Okay. Here, Nova is extending her experimental film practice of exploring the materiality of film and early cinematic practices through a Maori lens. She has researched and developed a methodology to process 16mm film in a plant-based film developer, replacing environmentally damaged Kodak D76 chemicals. Using foliage from the very same Rakau that are her filmic subjects, she creates a chlorophyll bath made from leaves and bark in which she develops the celluloid. For example, a riverside Purakau tree is filmed on 16mm film and is processed in bath of Purakau based chlorophyll developer, or as Nova calls it, tree juice. And I apologize for how I say all the non-English words here. I even apologize for how I say my English too. This is in addition to the plant-derived materials which traditionally make up the celluloid medium, including cotton byproducts and camphor. This technical methodology reflects the epistemological frameworks of the Te Ao Maori. Plant-based film chemicals processing reveals not only an image of the Rakau, but also the Maori, life force of the tree. Rather than continuing the extractive nature of Western photographic histories, taking an image, this co-creation between tree, human, and celluloid is a collaborative making of an image. You could even say that the images are given by the trees themselves, as Nova considers that the whole project came from the trees. Just as Lee speaks of a Purakau method, which creates opportunity to write about culture as well as write culture into the text, so too Nova is making images of trees as well as by trees in a branching methodology that allows for both. The both and. Alright, so this is interesting. I mean, I don't know how much philosophy is here, but basically, if you're gonna film in this way, they're gonna only use tree-based materials to actually make the whole thing. So that's kind of interesting. The branching methodology of both and troubles the categories inherent to Pekaha, that is non-Maori, generally European epistemologies, including the triadic semiotic theory of Charles Sanders Peirce. In this theory, the word tree is a symbol, the photograph or film of a tree is an icon, and the residue of the tree's bark an index. Yeah, so the semiotics is separating out the object and what's symbolizing the object and the relationship between the two. But photographs already problematize this division by sharing characteristics of indexicality, physically affecting the form of the sign and symbol, requiring a certain degree of cultural literacy to be interpreted. Again, the way we already break down the world has a history here. It's not so simple to actually say, oh yeah, pictures are the way things look. That's not the case. Pictures are the way things look under a certain theory, because that's why we made pictures the way we make them. You don't have to make them that way. You can make them other ways, and then maybe it will look different, but maybe you also think different about the world, and that's what you're picturing. You have to think of it more like, are all paintings photorealistic? No, but people paint things in different ways because they are showing something different. The way our cameras work because they're trying to show certain things in certain ways, but it's not the only thing that you can show. The Maori photographer Natalie Robertson argues for the indexical nature of photography when she writes about the experience of coming into contact with negatives of her own ancestors in a museum archive. Silver halide crystals held traces of light and energy reflected off my ancestral Waipu River and off people from my tribe. Nova's films, however, exceed the indexical. The fact that the images are made with tree juice and therefore carry DNA material imbues them with wakapapa. They are not remnant traces, but living relations. Alright, built it in. These films are akin to an arboreal self-portrait, trees speaking directly through an embodied medium. The use of this word akin rather than like deliberately leaves behind the language of Facebook, instead uses languages that emphasizes kinship or wakapapa cosmologies. Ivan, this paper makes you mad. This happens on, every so often you get a paper that really pisses people off, and that's okay. You don't have to like all the things that get read. I don't like all the things I read. But we'll see what this is. I take it you don't really you wouldn't like continental philosophy, because that's in the tradition of more continental, non-traditional Western sort of philosophies. That's okay. Continental philosophy is brutal? Quite often it is, yeah. Very often it's very brutal. But, there's ways to do things well. So good continental philosophy is very, very good, but like everything else, 90% of everything's crap. Like bad analytic philosophy is bad too, but like a lot of people have a soft spot for it, so they let the crap go. But they dislike, other stuff, and then you can't let it go. It all looks like garbage to you. But yeah, stuff is gonna piss you off, and that's why it's roulette. You don't know what you're gonna land on. An analogy can be drawn with Stan Brachage's 1963 film Mothlight, where filmmakers sandwiched moth wings, flowers, grasses, seeds, and leaves between two strips of clear film. As Jay Hoberman writes in Art Forum, this ceases to be representation and is instead the thing itself, profoundly indexical. In Nova's films, we might equate this with Mana Matuhake in action, self-determination for the trees as their own representatives. If the trees process sunlight to produce chlorophyll here, chlorophyll produces images of light in order to communicate messages across species. In the case of Brachage's Mothlight, Hoberman declares the filmmaker was practicing a particular sort of magic. In the case of Rakau and Hawaii, photosynthesis, filmmaking, and spirit are intertwined, and Maori is revealed. Okay, so is it something? Is it like, are you making basically each little frame kind of like filming through a leaf, basically what it is, like what it would be like to look through a tree leaf? And does that even matter? Like, what does that matter? But like, that's kind of the idea, is if you were looking through, if every frame was a tree leaf, would that actually mean something to you or the tree? Nova's filmmaking practice has been driven by implementing Mana Motuhake and Tino Rangatiratanga self-determinacy in order to decolonize representation and privilege indigenous processes, centering a Maori worldview in both the what and the how of her film practices creates relationships with subjects that echo Maori values and ways of being. In making her recent films, Nova wondered, can plants teach us how to take an image? And how might the wisdom that comes from indigenous harvesting be practiced when filming? In approaching her filmmaking, she asked the trees for their image and their leaves to make into a developer, and offered a karakia, a prayer or acknowledgement to the Angahiri, to the forest. Indigenous practices around collecting food and medicine and utilizing materials from the natural world have an intentionality, as described in Potawatomi botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer's Honorable Harvest. Care for the things that care for you, acknowledge the provider, ask for permission, and uphold the integrity of the process. Only take what is offered and only what you need, leaving more than half for others and for regeneration. Follow traditions of harvesting and utilize everything. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. Yeah, I mean, it's like, modern practices in the West, we just do what we need to do to get the job done. Frank Big Time says, would we consider a novel more intrinsically human communication if it was written on tanned human skin? Well, that is a good question. Say you had a tattoo, and I know a lot of people out there have tattoos. Is that something more human when you get a tattoo written on your body? Like CJ, I believe, is getting a Minesweeper tattoo. Is that something that is more personal to CJ? I don't know if they were gonna get it or they got it, but like, that's the thing. Like, I play a lot of Minesweeper. CJ plays a lot of Minesweeper. Like, that means something to us. Would that be more human, like a more human communication, or would it mean something more human or personally human to me? And so, like, yeah, there is something to that. Why do people get tattoos? Like, you wrote if it was like written on tanned human skin. Well, that is a weird thing to do. Like, if we got like tanned human skin and wrote a book on that. But you got to think, like, yeah, maybe there would be definitely something like that. Would be the sort of thing you might go see in a museum, and like people would like study it. Why would anyone have done that? So is it human communication? Well, it would be some sort. Yeah, you don't use CJ as an example, sure, Frank, but you don't know her. But if you developed a film using your blood, I would think that the film communicates anything from you. Yeah, I mean, like if I was using something from you to like write a book and had nothing to do with you, um, yeah, of course it has nothing to do with you, but like the thing is, like on the other hand, say it would be a very scarce resource to like use. You only have so much space on your body, only so much skin. You can only get so many tattoos. Like you may get like smaller and smaller ones, fill in all the gaps. But like in doing that, you have done something more subjective. You're treating this like everything is objective, like you can write an objective story that has nothing to do with you. But if you're like using a limited resource, in some sense, you're going to be more careful about it. And when you're more careful about it, you're going to take more care. And in that sense, yeah, if you're spending more time and effort on it, then maybe it does mean more to you. Ivan Neo says, if I have a leather jacket, does that mean the cow is talking to you? No, but see, this is the thing. This is the sort of the Western viewpoint that we can just take things from nature and then it doesn't matter. The non sort of like Western European viewpoint is that you're not supposed to do things like that. You are supposed to take it seriously, that you are using something from the natural world and you are not just taking it and using it for whatever your purpose is. So in some sense, if you have limited skin space to fill up with tattoos, then you're going to take it seriously is going to mean more to you. Now, the Western viewpoint where we can just use stuff from nature and not think about it is what they're arguing against here. That maybe this is not a good idea. But this is an old drum. Like, this is not anything new. This is, of course, the sort of Western European society does not live in like harmony with nature, if you want to get into like these sort of like dumb like harmony metaphors. But yeah, but like it's clearly we expand. You just do the Matrix thing. We multiply and multiply and we exhaust all the resources, and that's the only way, and we're a cancer on this earth. It's like, okay there, Mr. Smith. So, but that's the thing. This is a different way of looking at it. Maybe we don't want to do that anymore. Okay, considering filmmaking as a harvest, both by filming the trees and collecting leaves to make the film developer. See, right here, right there, you have to collect the leaves. You have to spend time picking up leaves. If you have to portion your day out to pick up leaves, maybe that will mean different things to you. There we go. We got a little Matrix rain. So Nova's practice included Karakia, acknowledging the gods, or Atua of the Engahiri and of creativity. Yeah, so this is the thing. If you have to break your day up, it's going to change your practices. Maybe then it will mean something, maybe not objectively to other people, but at least to you in how you did this stuff. How often do we ask permission before we take a photo, and how often do we treat images of ancestral beings we have taken with the ongoing respect they deserve? Okay, yeah, so you're saying it's artistic, aesthetic, emotional significance as an art. Yeah. But, I mean, and maybe some, politics is wrapped into that. That's fair. Alright, speaking of images of her departed ancestors, Maori filmmaker Murata Miti said, "At home, I greet the images of my ancestors and speak to them as they come forth on screen. They have much to relate to me, and I and my children have much to learn still from them. Foremost and through all my pervasiveness throughout this connection is the acknowledgement of our losing my voice, of our creator and our implacable link to the earth, its creatures, its elements and seasons, the stars, the planets, the entire universe." So if Rakau, trees, and the Pu, the base, and the Purakau, the stories, then let us dig deeper into their Wakapapa, grounded ancestral and material relations. We will pair 3 of the Rakau that make up Nova's new film series with a Purakau, which develops in the double meaning of botanical growth and the emergence of imagery on the film, the knowledge and wisdom of the trees. Nge to Tohu, the signs they reveal through their Korero, the messages. If your films don't heal, there's no point in making them. Okay, so this already, we've got a ameliorative theory of art. So like art has to heal, and without that, there's no point. As with other indigenous practices that center the natural world, such as those outlined in Kimamura's Honorable Harvest, for Maori, Karakia, acknowledgments are offered to Tain Mahuta for all plants harvested, giving thanks for life and fruits of the forest that give us health. Each Karakia finishes with Tihe Maori Ora, calling the breath of life and asserting well-being. By entering into this relational practice, it is also possible to consider taking filmic images in the same way. Undergrowth, bushes, scrub, and ferns provide the birthing and nursery conditions for trees. Firm fronds unfurl like koru, the intricate spirals that can be seen throughout Maori wakiro carving and koahaiwai painting. Ferns are fractals whose leaves mirror and echo their own structure on a micro and macro level. Perhaps it is no coincidence that one of the first photographs on record is William Fox's Talbot's buckler fern, a calotype from the Greek meaning beautiful impression. Another key species of the undergrowth is kawakawa, a medicinal plant known for its many healing properties. Such is the significance of this sacred plant that it is used in ceremonial contexts. For example, kawakawa is held by women when they karenga call people to the sacred grounds of the marae. Okay. Kawakawa leaves are held and shaken to create energies which open a doorway for ancestors to come through. This trembling can also be heard in the vibrato voices of the women calling the ancestors, known as Irahangaranga, which shares vibrational resonances with Rakau and can be seen in quivering, iridescent leaves in a scene in Nova's pink and white terraces. Such trembling indicates a threshold space and can be productively linked to what Edouard Glissant referred to as the trembling thinking required to imagine the world anew. Utopia needs a trembling thinking. We cannot discuss utopia with fixed ideas. Alright, do we have, what is utopic thinking right here? Really, what is it? How do you actually talk about utopias? You can't talk about utopias in current sense because we do not have a utopia here. And anytime we talk about utopias here, they go dystopic very quickly. So, but this is the politics I think Ivan Neo's just hinted at. Whenever you get to this sort of thinking that you're trying to get beyond where we are now, you're going to get political. For Glissant, a Caribbean writer who thought with the mangrove, tremblement is thinking in which we can lose time searching, in which we can wander in which we can counter all the systems of terror, domination, and imperialism with the poetics of trembling. If only he could have seen Kua performing the weary or quivering hands with and without kawakawa leaves as they enter the sacred space of the marae. It is said that this movement represents, among other things, shimmering waters, heat waves, and importantly, the kaupapa of the korero, wind rustling through leaves. Trees have been imbricated with film since the Lumieres produced Repas de Bebe, The Baby's Meal, in 1895, where it was noted that audiences were even more enthralled by the rustling leaves in the background than the prosaic action of feeding a baby in the foreground. Ivan Neo says continental philosophy is about posing, signaling, name-dropping, and obfuscation. Yep, quite often. In her essay, Vegan Cinema, Anat Pick contrasts two approaches to life and looking exemplified by this film, the devouring baby and its non-voracious alternative that attends to objects at a distance and lets them be. Pick's concept of vegan cinema is not necessarily a didactic exploration of animal rights, but a cinema which allows the more than human to permeate the medium rather than the relentlessly anthropocentric narratives of mainstream film. In The Baby's Meal, what is most profound is that the beauty of the fluttering leaves made visible by the operational nature of the operation of natural forces undirected by human hands to which the cinema is witness. It is these natural forces that Nova connects to and makes with in the films Rakau and Hawaii Ki. Yeah. Let's see, how much more of this do we got? A few more pages. Okay. So we got to get to 12 and I'm on 7. Dearie. Okay. Because we're just going over films now. I don't know. But I'd like to get through it. Perhaps the most famous and foundational Purakau is that of the separation of Ranginui, the Skyfather, and Papatuanuku the Earth Mother. Before their son Tane, god of Tane, Tane, god of the forest, pushed them apart, there was no light, no differentiation in the universe. The two parental gods and their children lived together in featureless darkness. Tane and his siblings were tired of living this way and instigated a rebellion. Tane lay on his back and pushed with his long, straight legs. Interestingly, in terms of the copious contemporary literature on the intelligence of trees, which resides in the mycorrhizal or fungal networks found in trees' entangled roots, Maori always knew the head of the tree is its root system, not the leafy canopy. Eventually, Tane's parents were pushed apart, allowing for illumination and creating Te Ao Marama, the world of light. Aptly, Tane Mahuta is personified as the largest kauri tree in Aotearoa, lording over the Negahare, the forest in the Northland, where he is a major tourist attraction and home to countless forms of wildlife. Frank Big Time says, I don't think I've seen a legend where it's a child that splits apart the Sky Father and Earth Mother. That is fascinating. Yeah. And this is why I like reading stuff I'm not familiar with, because people have different ideas about stuff. Don't always agree with all of it, but sometimes they do have something that you haven't seen before. And this is interesting that there was like a family all like intermixed, and that the kids had to get out of the parents' house, and so they actually made the change happen. Oh man, I'm losing my voice. Oh well. Okay. Film is a medium of light, and our whole cosmos can be visioned as Henri Bergson imagined it as a metacinema, with its play of light, shadow, and movement. Similarly, photosynthesis brings the world into being. Plants are our oldest ancestors, without whom we could not breathe, and to whom we owe the gift of life. Tuho Kaumetua, without whom... Tuho Kamatua Hemi YY further elaborated the etymology of Rakau trees as follows. Re is the source of divine energy, the sun. K is the igniting of divine energy, a spark. U is to instill, and therefore Rakau can be understood as the process Western science more recently came to call photosynthesis. This could also be related back to the Purakau of Maori snaring the sun, since photosynthesis is a kind of binding of the sun's energy, transmuting it into another form. We can understand photosynthesis as a mode of non-human looking. The sun must be perceived by plants to create the basic building blocks of life. Even the birth of human vision is linked to photosynthesis, as our microscopic ancestors had no eyes but photoreceptors, which sensed sunlight, and the cellular structure that enabled them to photosynthesize is the same one that eventually developed into eyes. Oh, interesting. So photosynthesis actually turned into eyes, became eyes. Did not know that. I mean, it could have easily developed some other way, not through a plant-based history of photosynthesis. Film can also be called a kind of photosynthesis. Just think of the first photograms, which were literally developed in the sun. If the Reverend Maury Marsden speaks of a woven universe, perhaps we could imagine both film and photosynthesis, and especially film developed in chlorophyll, as weaving with light. Patricia Grace explains, writing can be likened to both carving and weaving. A writer, like a carver, seeks to reveal what is within. A writer, like a weaver, selects the strands and works them together. Certainly, Nova's films have always been woven, meshing together layers of color, time, place, and perspective. But attending to light, we cannot ignore the foundational role of darkness, either in cinema or in the growth of plants and people. Dunn quotes Tina Maccaretti, who refers to Te Kore, the void or chaos, as a place of pure potentiality. Okay, so now we're getting interesting. So we're talking of chaos or void as a potential. And Dunn interprets this as meaning the place where creativity springs from. Indeed, Ranginui Walker refers to Te Kore as the primeval matter that comprised the seeds of the universe, which coalesced to form Papatuanuku and Ranginui, and it is from this union that all things in the world descend, including Atua, stars, mountains, lakes, and rivers, flora, fauna, humans, and other animals. This is why Maori Wakapapa to, or make relations with, not just the originary parents, but the environment and everything in it, including animals. They are Wananga relations. This is always a good point. I think people forget this. yeah, we're all like space dust or whatever, but like we're all on this earth together, and it's not like we are really that far related. So it is sort of like our like light way of life, and our living actually is tied to all the things here. Like the way we live does matter to the environment. Like the environment matters to how we live. And it's interesting that like we can separate it out. Like we can extract things from the environment and live, but like the way we are is because of our environment. All right. If Gilles Deleuze compares filmmakers to philosophers, saying that the former think with images rather than concepts, could we compare trees to filmmakers? Both do their developing in the dark in order to project it onto or into or via te amarama, the world of light. Film itself thinks, and so too do trees. There has been so much recent scholarship on plant intelligence, but much of this tends to imagine trees as independent scholars, although Michael Marder is quick to point out that rhizomic thinking, which is plant thinking proper, takes us beyond the fictitious enclosure of a reified and self-sufficient identity. Ivan's like, nah. Likewise, we want to acknowledge the whole entangled forest, starting, of course, with the undergrowth and what is under the undergrowth, Papatuanuku, our mother, to whom we all Wakapapa make relations with. In fact, the word Negahiri, forest or bush as is referred to in Aotearoa, literally means the ties representing interrelations and interdependence. Okay. If plants were the first filmmakers, it is not surprising that light in the trees recurs as a filmic trope well beyond its debut with the Lumieres. This is how the dream machines of Brian Gysin and William Burroughs came into being. They were contraptions built to echo the play of light and shadow on eyelids as seen with the sun setting through trees while traveling on a bus or train. The pulsing, flickering could induce hallucinatory patterns behind the eyes, psychedelics without drugs, a state Nova's films frequently produce. See, I find this interesting that there was no claim here that Nova's films produce a sort of hallucinatory patterns. That would be kind of fascinating. That if the actual like if you closed your eyes and you were getting this sort of projected into your face, would you actually start to hallucinate like certain things? Like, does that actually happen? That would be super fascinating, actually, saying, look, these weird ways you like project trees onto people's faces actually make them think of stuff. Like, that's actually super interesting right there. Does this actually happen? I don't know. There was no reference on that one. Okay, important to this discussion is the concept of Maori that permeates all Maori thinking, including arts and sciences. Scholars from the latter field, Daniel Hikuroa, Angela Slade, and Darren Gravely, have provided an excellent summary of Maori via numerous thinkers and definitions, including that it operates as a physical life principle, the sparkle of life, the active component that indicates a person is alive, the binding force between the physical and the spiritual, the capacity for air, water, or soil to support life. They would hallucinate something, but it wouldn't be because of it was trees. No, I agree that it wouldn't be because trees, but it would be super interesting that this sort of projection did create, like, induced more hallucinations than other things might be. Like, that might indicate something about how we actually form thoughts when it came to, like, the interplay of, like, light as coming through trees. Because if like that sort of shadow and that sort of thing is what our brain is keying off of, that would be something psychological or neurobiological that might be like super interesting to investigate. Importantly for our purposes here, Maori can be found in water, land, forests as well as mist, wind, soil, and rocks, and is the force that interpenetrates all things to bind and knit them together. Tohunga Reverend Maori Marsden notes that the photographic technologies can reveal the Maori in life. Those with the powers and insight and perceptions perceived Maori as an aura of light and energy radiating from all animate life. It is now possible to photograph the Maori in living things. Marsden recognizes that photographic practices enable Maori to be visualized and that the filmic apparatus has the potential for revealing otherwise imperceptible life forces, thus enabling spiritual insights. Reflecting on the aura of light radiating from life has been an ongoing preoccupation in Nova's film practice. Her Technicolor films experimented with color separation techniques, intent on opening spaces for tracing Wairua spirit, layering Waka Papa, and creating a decolonial thought image. By pulling apart the fabric of time, just as Tane once pulled apart his parents in order to create a new reality. Okay, so this is, looks like some plants. This same Atua, Tanemahuta, god of the forest, also sought and retrieved Ngate Kete Otewananga, the 3 baskets of knowledge from the heavens. 3 baskets, ooh, that's what it takes? There's 3 baskets of knowledge, cool. These include Kete Tuatea, the basket of light, Te Kete Tuari, the basket of darkness, and Te Kete Aronui, the basket of pursuit. See, this is again interesting. We've got light, darkness, and pursuit, which is not normally how things are broken down. And I've heard before the pursuit as a form of knowledge. Okay, that the Wainanga, which is a place of learning, was brought into being by the gods of trees, forests, and birds does not seem coincidental. The forest is a library, a repository of knowledge. It is thick with information. In having this cross-cultural and cross-Tasman hui, we two, Nova and Tessa, are creating a Wainanga. This text is not the product of a singular vision. We are not a singular voice, but a braided one, like the after images in Nova's color separation films. Kimura also discusses color after images when she notes the abundance of her ancestral lands on Turtle Island, including the psychedelic inflorescence of yellow goldenrods and purple asters. These complementary colors appear in late summer, making pupils, in both senses of the word, vibrate and dilate. Kimura uses this afterimage effect as a metaphor for the 2 worlds she inhabits, her science eyes and the world of Potawatomi traditional knowledge. Her methodology, like our Tasman Maori Pekehei Wainanga, is one of complementarity. She hopes that science and traditional knowledge can be purple and yellow to one another, enacting the beautiful overlay of goldenrod and aster in the complementary colors. We see the world more fully when we use both. Yeah, see, Ivan, even they know that, like, you can't separate it all out. They're trying to get, like, a complement here. Ivan's angry. They're trying to get some sort of complementary thing going on here. And I don't know how successful they're going to be. But, like, this has been a long... this happens in a lot of places, actually. They're trying... I can see the moon right there. It's actually very cool. But, getting traditional knowledge and contemporary, like, knowledge to work together is very hard. I will make one comment. I don't know if this is the same case, but, like, traditional Chinese medicine, when it comes to, like, everyday injuries and stuff, has the same rate of success as Western medicine. In your philosophy meetup, you were known by saying, "Doesn't anything make you angry?" I asked that question a lot. What is pissing you off? Why, like, philosophy is good at pissing people off. But it's like, this is the thing. There is traditional information because, like, the Chinese, traditional Chinese doctors have the same rate of success for, you know, basic things, not like surgeries, but like, you know, like colds and whatnot that, like, Western medicine does. But the concepts are very different. And so people have been trying for a long time to figure out what is going on in the 2 different theories. And it's extremely difficult to get these 2 things to work together. Frank says, but that's because Western medicine is bad too. Well, yeah, but, like, for simple things, you want to get good outcomes, and both the Western medicine gets decent outcomes, but also the traditional Chinese medicine does too. And so the idea that, like, you should try to combine both to get, like, better outcomes seems like a good idea, but they don't know how it works, and it's very hard to make that. The concepts do not line up at all. What do you call a person who passes med school with the lowest possible grade? Doctor. Yeah, but I mean, med school is very hard, and that's the point, that even someone with a lowest possible grade is actually a halfway decent doctor, because everyone else has gotten weeded out. I mean, that's the thing. Same with engineer schools. What do you call the person who, like, designs your bridge? Like, it's still an engineer. As long as they pass, that means they're not going to screw it up, though. Yeah, sometimes success is regression to the mean. You don't think that's true? It's very hard, and it's hard. Of course, there are crappy doctors out there. You've had a lot of bad doctors? Yeah. I mean, I know. Like, I've had bad doctors too. I know people who've had bad doctors. But, you know, and you hope they get weeded out at certain points. If not in school, maybe later. But, like, just because they got good grades doesn't make them a good doctor either. That's also the case. Like, a lot of times, like, my mom complains. She has these very good doctors. She's got very good health care. She's older and has good health care. She's had it forever. But, like, you know, some doctors don't listen. You know, they don't listen to her, or they don't listen. And it's like she just wants them to talk for a little bit. And, like, they're very good on paper, but they're not very good doctors because they're not really listening. They're just sort of checking boxes. And so it's like, these people have the top grades. But, like, are they good doctors? Not always. So you gotta, like, look out for a lot of stuff. So it is weird. Like, I can see just like the littlest sliver of the moon, like right over there, and it's like it's distracting me because it's like a light bulb in the corner of this window. But anyway, yeah. But so this is the thing. But, like, trying to figure out what people are. Yeah, I've been called a werewolf before. It's not a full moon. It's sort of like a quarter moon. Okay, vision, however, not to mention scopic apparatuses such as cameras, microscopes, and telescopes, have all been tied to Western systems of domination. Behind Nova's film practice is an ethos that echoes Maori filmmaker Barry Barclay's notes around hui, meetings, korero, discourse, and the desire to make the camera a listener rather than a scopophilic voyeur. Listening is a humble activity undertaken by students in the Wananga of life. See if I can make through this. A film can also be a Wananga, a place of learning, a place of time, space, a place of time in space, a starting point for filmic production and engagement, the site of making and then viewing. This Wananga framework radiates out like the concentric circles within a tree trunk, marking growth, knowledge, and measuring time. Frank Big Time says, it feels like we are just attacking, making you defend something you don't really want to defend really hard. I'm still enjoying the learning new perspective. No, you can attack all you want if you want to attack. If you want to just comment, that's cool too. I don't have to defend this stuff. This is talking about, like, films. Like, I'm not a film expert here. Like, and it's continental stuff. And, like, I don't need to defend continental philosophy. Either it makes its case and you like it or it doesn't. But there's still, like, interesting concepts going by here. And so, am I going to defend this, like, in the last, like, at the end? It's like, probably not. But, like, I still want to get through it. And believe me, this ain't the worst thing I've read on Philosophy Roulette. Like, this is okay in the grand scheme of Philosophy Roulette. Like, I thought the last paper was nice analytic philosophy, and it made a nice point. Now, was that a super critical point? No. But, like, hey, this one's got fun pictures and, like, some fun ideas in it. Like, do you have to agree with their concept of time changing and their decolonizing effect that this filmmaking practice has? No, you don't have to buy that. But people are trying to do something here. They are trying to do something. And, you know, you can attack it if you want. But, like, what the harder question is there anything to be learned about clearly older ideas from a different culture? Maybe there is. And that's the question, is, like, that's the whole point of comparative philosophy, is that sometimes people do know stuff. And if you look hard enough, you can figure it out. Will it hold up under, like, Western, like, analysis of, like, you know, hardcore science and logic? Nah, nothing holds up under that, though. Like, earlier, who was it saying? It was Lumpy Dragon Potato says, is everything you read on Philosophy Roulette bad? It's like, no, I'm very hard on everything. I tear things apart. Like, that's what I do when I do philosophy most of the time. It's like, yeah. It's like, you can always do that, but, like, the Western analytic philosophy deserves that. When you're looking at comparative philosophy like this, you have to ask, is there anything, because this is more like mining. You're digging. And most of the time when you're digging dirt, and it's crap. You're trying to find something, and so you have to sift through it all. So this is more like a philosophical archaeology here. And so the question is, do you want to attack it? Well, it's like, yeah, you're attacking dirt. It's like, I know most of the time you're just digging at dirt and there ain't nothing there. But it's more like mining. You have to wait and see if there's anything worthwhile to find. Sometimes there is, sometimes no. Okay. In this Wainanga, Mita has a correro with delusions about the thought image, suggesting that the medium of celluloid film creates memory pictures of the imagination in a continuation of the oral tradition. Okay, so is film closer to oral tradition than other things? Maybe. The Puriri tree is very special to Nova's Hapu because her mountain, Watitiri, was covered in puriri that were felled by colonial settlers. It is said that the name Watitiri, goddess of thunder, was given to the mountain because of the flapping of the kukupa, the wood pigeon, wings. Their abundance due to gorging on puriri berries made a thunderous noise. Nova's Hapu uses puriri leaves in their funerary rites, making perau, head wreaths, and surrounding the deceased body. The Rakau is a portal between this world and the underworld. Before colonization, Tupe Paku were placed in trees, and a year later our bones were interred in caves. Today, stands of Puriri are often Wahi Tapu sacred sites. Okay, and so this is interesting too. Your bodies were placed in trees, and then a year later the bones were interred in caves. Again, so this is something different. Your bodies are placed in trees for a full year and then you are moved out. Like, what is that funerary practice? Within the film Hawaiki, the Puriri tree is a focal point, a portal created by the children of Okui School on Aotea, Great Barrier Island, and the Hauraki Gulf. At the edge of the playground, close to the forest, the children have made a refuge they call Hawaiki. Woven through ancestral stories and in genealogy, Hawaiki is a place with spiritual and metaphysical connections for the Maori. With deep cultural links across the Pacific or Te Moana Nui Akiwa, Hawaiki is an island, a homeland, a portal where Maori come from and will return to. In the world of the children, we see that their ancestors also intended that the Hawaiki was for them to make their own, to play with, and have agency within. Hawaiki is a place where spiritual connections to ancient wisdom exist, a sanctuary for reflection and place to be yourself. Under the shelter of the trees and grounded on the land, the children create a space for their self-determination, reminding us that Hawaiki enables us to build the world we want. Alright, more tree pictures. Very nice. This is a fractal or nested wananga, place of learning within or in addition to the school on whose ground it has emerged. We might relate this relational wananga to Moten and Harney's concept of study that exists both inside and outside and in spite of the institution. Study is always relational. Study is what you do with other people, and it is talking and walking around with other people, working, dancing, suffering, some irreducible convergence of all three, held under the name of speculative practice. In Hawaiki, Nova is both filming a wainanga and creating one. The film itself is a place of learning, a concrete sense of time into place with its Maori life force coming from the Puriri tree itself. The Puriri juice that develops the film is vivid green, bursting with chlorophyll with life, giving a rich tone to its celluloid self-portraits, Tihei Maori aura. By contrast, Pohu Tukawa gives an orangey sepia tone. This makes sense both in terms of its reddish wood, bright red flowers, and the fact that in film media, sepia is associated with memory and passing, and Pohu Tukawa are connected to death. They tumble and prostrate themselves, humbly reaching and searching sea and sky, as well as holding out a helping hand to guide those on rocky paths, including the spirits of the departed on their journey to Hawaiki. Pohutuku Kawa is the name of one of the stars of the Matariki cluster, Pleiades, and she is the star associated with collecting the souls of the departed. Alright, so we got more tree picture, and you got like more roots and it going up. In Hawaiki, Pohutukawa's self-portrait is flecked by flashes of light, scars and scratching, like the salt and sea spray that some say is the source of the name Pohutu, a geyser, appropriate to a seaside tree. So close are they to the sea that some iwi have the Pohutukawa Wakapapa relate to Tangor, the god of the sea, rather than Tane, god of the forest. The ocean breeze gusts through limbs, which wave to and with the waves of the ocean. They have strong hearts, as the name Iron Heart would attest to. Their timber is staunch and red like a beating heart. Gate Raru Itaiwa Irita Trust writes that Pohutakawa are filled with aroha or love. The Pohutukawa and the Rete are related by their red blooms, and Rete is a key character in an important Purakau story. Rete was on a mission to avenge his father, and so he needed to make a canoe. But even though he cut down a stray tree and began carving it, when he returned the next day to complete his task, the canoe was nowhere to be seen, and instead the tree he had felled was standing tall again in the very spot he had cut it down. Rete felled the tree again and carved it again, but the next day the exact same thing happened. My RK, what up? How you doing? Welcome in. I'm reading something about Maori cosmology and someone who's trying to capture that on film. Hope you're doing well. Ask me any questions you want about basically philosophy, this stuff, or Minesweeper, because that's the stuff I know. Hope you're doing okay. This time, after cutting and carving, Rete hid behind a bush and saw the Hakuturi, spirits of the forest in the form of birds, insects, and peka or bats, were replacing all the fragments of the tree. When he confronted them, they told him he had failed to follow kawa or protocol. When he did so by reciting karakia before taking a life from the forest, as in Kimura's honorable harvest, the Hakuturi released the tree, and Rato was able to continue on his mission. All right, so this is actually sort of fascinating because the forest was sort of rewinding time. It was putting the tree back together. So you could actually imagine this in like a what was that? The not the guy who did Inception, but that movie where everything was going backwards, like the explosions were going the wrong way. So this is a legend where the forest was replacing the tree in that. Yeah, I know your dad would be pissed at you. He'd be like, "You said I did do that." Be like, "It wasn't me." No, no, not Memento. That was about someone who had no memory. It was by the same guy who did Inception. I can't remember the name. I have to look it up real fast. Let's see if I can find it. Inception movie maker. Let's see who did this. Christopher Nolan. Let's see. So it's Nolan movie list. Let's just go do that. I think it was it Tenet? Where everything like time was rewinding or something. Yeah, I think it was Tenet. But so if you see Tenet, what they have is like in sometimes you can go forward and backwards in time, but like things are going like reversing and stuff also. And so like this is the thing, like the forest itself was reversing time back into like what you shouldn't be able to do is go from like a full tree to a carved canoe, but it was like replacing all the pieces in some sense in a perfect way. So I think that's like sort of an interesting like myth right there that they have, that you can, that the forest can rewind time and remake a whole tree out of a carved tree. Right. Author says that the tree cannot be felled is interesting in relation to Deleuze and Guattari's systematic attempt to destroy the image of arborescence and lineal descent in favor of the distributed rhizome. Of course, we now know that trees are not in fact individual upright citizens of the plant kingdom, but nodes in underground networks. Martyr argues for the use of rhizomal thought and other Deleuzian concepts without uprooting or felling the tree because no plant is the product of hierarchical organization. Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't know this, that a lot of trees are not actually singular things, but like their roots are all connected, and so like the what we would call trees are actually just stalks of a much larger plant. The there's like a what looks like to be a forest out in like the western United States is actually a single plant, one big tree. And so like there is a plant that like a forest that is basically not a forest. It's just one gigantic tree plant thing. And so some trees are just like that's the tree. Not all of them though. So according to Martyr, even in its spatial verticality, the tree maintains conceptual horizontality. Its body is a non-totalizing assemblage of multiplicities. It goes without saying that Maori have always known this, and that in trying to fell the Tain Mahuta without acknowledging mycorrhizal Wakapapa, Deleuze was barking up the wrong tree, upon all the more Laird when we consider both the bark that develops Nova's films and that Deleuze himself called the barking of dogs, the stupidest cry, the shame of the animal kingdom. The fact that Reite's tree reassembles again and again is thanks to the networked nature of the forest. Birds and insects put the tree back together again, piece by piece, because the tree is already made up of countless actors, countless forces. It is an inherently political space of conviviality. Purakau reminds us of this, with their fibrous matted aerial roots infringing their gnarled trunks. Purakau are elders. They demonstrate the beauty of the bent frame, wrinkled skin, and blemished limbs, a reminder of death in life and life in death. The films Rakau and Hawaii enact a cinematic thinking with arboreal Wananga family, including the undergrowth and medicine, here represented by Kawakawa, abundance including food, berries, and fat pigeons, but also knowledge, Wainanga, and life force, as with the Pururi, and death and rebirth, and the entanglement of those states with Pohutukawa. All these Rakau, Purakau exist within a Maori kaupapa, or framework of relations that holds a space for us all. The film calls for a collective restoration of the Ngahiri, chip by chip, to slow the capitalist march of time, as Maui did, so that the trees have time to grow. Indigenous epistemology, science, and knowledge enable us to consider how we might think with the trees and acknowledge how trees have, in fact, provided the template for thinking and being since the emergence of Te Ao Meirama, our shared world of light. Indigenous ways of being passed down, tuku iho, generation after generation, understand that all creatures depend upon the trees and their wisdom. Okay, that took a little bit too long, but this was alright in the sense of like, they were talking about the movies. Unfortunately, I have not seen any of these movies, and so I can't actually comment on most of this. This is one of these difficulties. They kind of did not tell us from the get-go that they were talking about movies this whole time. Like, they were talking about a lot of stuff, and then they flipped the switch on us and saying, well, these movies are the, like, quintessential ways of, like, that people are trying to bring this forward. And just like, that's nice, but like, the funny thing here is that the paper that they wrote did not reflect the movies. They did a very linear paper, a very like structured, like one thing going, oh, it's kind of loud, sorry. It's like a very linear paper. It's like a very structured going forward thing. And I don't think they captured a lot of what they were saying. They basically just declared what was going on. And so this paper just kind of described the ideas without giving a, I don't know if like there's any insight that they could have added to it, but I just felt like, you know, maybe if there is something in these movies, I don't know if a whole lot of that was captured in this paper. And they just sort of went through the ideas like one after the other and trying to get that. I would have been much happier if they sort of focused on one aspect instead of like kind of going around to a bunch of different ideas. Now, I understand that like you can try to talk about like all the interrelations, but it just makes this paper seem like very overly complex. And I know Ivan Neal was griping about this, that like things were you know, it just seemed unclear. And very funny, Frank. This paper would have been much better if it had been typed up on a wooden keyboard. I know, like they should have asked permission to make the keys and make the keyboard. But it's like it seemed like it was trying to get a lot of, like, trying to get all the ideas of the Maori thought about trees all out in this one paper. And maybe there's it just feels like a little bit too much here, because some of the ideas may have been good, may have been worth investigating, but instead we've got, like, working, dancing, suffering, some other irreducible convergence of all three held under the name of speculative practice. Like, all the things when you're talking about, like, study, like, all the things. How is this? You can't do all the things all at once. And if the films are doing all the things all at once, then they're probably not very good films either, because you have to, like, do, something. You can't get all the ideas all at once, all out. And so I feel like this paper just bit off more than it could chew. I would have been happier with, like, half the ideas, half the space. Yeah, so I've been saying is a Rorschach ink block. Yeah, like, you're projecting too much into it. And so that's the thing. If they had, like, simplified it down, talked about one movie where they're talking about, like, maybe just the the color shift, and they just focused on the color shift this whole time, all the different things that went into the color shift, how the color shift meant something in this sort of the Maori headspace. Like, that would have been cool, but it just seems like too much was going on and it was unfocused. And I would have been very happy, like, see, we've got different pictures. You could have different kinds of color shift, the different ideas behind the different color shifts, where time and space are mattering to it. Then it would have been an anthropology paper or an analytic argument. I mean, it says, yeah, but, like, I would have been happier with that. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. Well, I know what they were trying to accomplish here. They were trying to get the idea of trees as a way of thought out here. But again, could have done it. But I think too much was going on in this one paper to get, like, any clear idea about, like, if they did an analysis of, like, just the color shift, it may have been a bit more focused, but they didn't go into the Maori cosmology specifically. They talked about a few different instances, and it like, those were cool. Like, as was mentioned, there was some interesting stuff about how, like, the child pushed the parents away, and that's what made the world, really. But yeah, Frank says I liked the legend stuff, and I don't know what that mesh time means, but it did make me think about time in ways I find interesting. Exactly. Like, if there was more, like, focused on a few of these things, like, okay, how do we separate out colors and time in different interesting ways? Maybe that would have been cool. But instead they did all the things all at once. And in that case, it's hard for the rest of us who are not Maori or experienced with this sort of Maori thought to, really get, I think, to follow along. Like I said, if you like this stuff, if you're interested in this sort of thing, and maybe if you had a little bit of more background than I did, maybe this would be good. I don't know. But it's just like, I just felt like too much was happening here. It's like, okay, we've got mountains and trees and all sorts of different ideas. So yeah.